So it is overall a one-man comedy show about my Dungeons and Dragons character. I wanted to do something that involved roleplay. The character came about as COVID hit. It was made for nerdy community, people that were very ingrained within the pop culture community. I really wanted to delve deeper within the roleplay aspect of this sort of new hobby that I've sort of came across.
Yes! Yes! My God, yes!
I like that.
My name is Luke McCarricker, and I am the artist behind Lurien the Reprobate. There we go. Like a glove. So it is overall a one-man comedy show about my Dungeons and Dragons character. Essentially, what it began as when it comes to what I wanted to do for my final project. I wanted to do something that involved roleplay, because at the beginning of 2019. I decided to take the plunge and try to do some Dungeons and Dragons, because it was getting a lot of popularity back then, and because it involved a lot of role playing and a lot of making up a character as you went along in hypothetical situations, and interacting with people that would have been doing the exact same thing, as well as given varying tools and abilities due to who you go as and what class you become. I thought it was quite interesting, and as an actor, it felt quite up my alley. It felt like something that could improve my skills.
Blades come up. Yell.
The character came about as it was as COVID hit, and all my mates that I was previously doing a session with in person decided, oh, how are we going to do this? Do we want to keep doing this? If we're going to keep doing it, do we want to do it over Discord? Do we want to do it over Microsoft Teams or Zoom? And we tried doing that, and it didn't have that feel, it didn't have that repartee, so to say.
So who would you describe your piece as being for then? Who is your audience for this piece? Who do you want to speak to?
My audience genuinely would be for people that would be very much looking for like something to laugh at, something very comedic. However, it was made for like the sort of nerdy community, the people that were very ingrained within the pop culture community.
Love the costume.
Thank you.
Costumes really make pieces, don't they?
Indeed it does, indeed it does. I don't feel like Luke anymore. I feel like somebody that's been on the run for a wee while. Yeah, there's like, I know people that they'll be playing a one shot where it's like they're just playing in like a fabricated world for like a few hours, but they write a massive novel about like what their character's gone through, and then afterward they die, and it's like it just all went to waste. And even with that, when you know like who your character is and how you're gonna walk in their shoes, and what voice you're gonna put on, and how you're gonna move within this. When you're like sitting down at a table, there's a lot of like thought that goes into that, and one of the reasons why I decided to do that for my final project was, in essence, there's not really that much difference between that and just going for a regular character that you would maybe prepare for like Shakespeare or like an Arthur Miller play.
Was it these sort of role-playing games, especially D&D, is that what got you into acting? Or
No.
Was it the other way around? Did you sort of stumble across this once you'd already started acting? Or?
Yeah, essentially I got into acting when I was about 13, when I just started out in high school. I was always like into like the BB plays, whenever they came about. I got my higher in drama when I was about 15, 16. I only really came across Dungeons and Dragons when I was about, I want to say 21, 20 years old. Around that time, when like 5th edition came out and like all these new rules made it more accessible to like beginning players or people that were just wanting to dip their toe within like tabletop role-playing games, because it had this reputation previously beforehand of being like heavily complicated and very intimidating for people to get into at first. So I think now with the option to like role play more heavily and sort of compromise certain rules and aspects and just go along with it and have fun with it within this sort of 5th edition since 1979, then I can maybe make an argument to say that it's maybe improving my acting work
really?
A little bit.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yes. Yes. Yes! By the gods, yes! I did it! I finally done it!
I like that.
I've really wanted to delve deeper within the roleplay aspect of this sort of new hobby that I've sort of came across. It's because I wanted to delve deeper within this hobby that I came across a few years ago, but also you know, I've seen a lot of people that admit like, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and they're like heavily talented people. It's not just like celebrities. They're like, even like celebrities have came out and said, "Oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons," and like loads of people are like, "Oh, I can see why they would do that." But like there's like a lot of talented people within like the theatre community that I know that'll use like tabletop slang or constantly talk about like certain sessions that they've had, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I might as well try that out to see like if that also does improve my sort of skills and my sort of keeping my acting chops when it comes to like improvisation and character building quite sharp in an industry that's like heavily competitive.
So, what do you think of the idea of crossing platforms like with theatre and gaming, or theatre, film, stuff, gaming, film, that kind of thing? But specifically, I guess in this case, theatre and gaming. But like, is that something that potentially do you think could go somewhere? Do you think it's exciting, or do you think that they should just be kept to their own restraints?
Not at all. I mean, usually with like shows like Critical Role and Dimension 20, it's they get a lot of like internet celebrities and voice actors to like come along and play D&D, and they showcase their talents when it comes to like it's like improvisation in a way where you're given like a certain circumstance for like your character to be within, and like judging on whether they're prevalent within the skills that they're given or not so prevalent within the skills that they're given, and what they want to do within that situation that corresponds with their skills, whether they like pass or fail what they want to do. It sort of like puts the actor within this sort of situation. It keeps them on their toes. It keeps them. It's very Meisner. It's like, oh, what would you do in this situation? What would your character do in this situation if they never had a script, if they're just acting on instinct? It showcases that and their skills when doing such a thing, and to like capture that on camera and to capture that for an audience to see. There's entertainment in that.
Is there anything on this project, is there any point in time or is there any process that you felt didn't work, that something just didn't work out the way that you wanted or had planned? Or?
My original plan was to take on the role of a dungeon master. That's where like they like describe the sort of situations and like make a decision on whether you pass or fail by the roll of dice. Within these sort of circumstances, that they're telling to like a group of people that they're playing with. I would originally do that and ask if like 5 to 6 people to take part in this project over a few weeks. But because of like COVID and stuff, and the fact that I couldn't find anybody within that sort of time period, it just kind of fell through and it didn't work. And it was only through like a interview with Linda where I asked for like a recommendation of what I could do, and she said, "Oh, you say that you're like into like a lot of like plays and like the role play aspect of stuff. Why don't you like put on just a show for yourself. It could be like a one-man play or whatever.
So you said that this character was actually based on your own D&D character.
Yeah.
Were there any other inspirations for this piece? Were there any other piece of art or anything else that you personally used as an inspiration for this character or for the aesthetic of your whole piece?
For the character, I just based it off of I originally based it off of like like the scumbag scoundrel archetype that you would get in a lot of like fantasy sci-fi games, like games and like movies and that. So like your Han Solos, your Nathan Drakes, your Aragorns from like Lord of the Rings and all that. But like being the way that I am, and not looking as handsome as I like feel that I am, and not being like typically, hey, how you doing? I do what I want when I want. Not having that kind of like, brash, arrogant confidence that I have, and it gave me an opportunity to like act like that through the shoes of another character that I would typically play as within every single week with a group of friends. And that also kind of led into like why I put it within like the comedy section for what I did. It's why I put it in the comedy genre for my show, because if I approach this sort of fantasy drama, if I approach it through like this fantasy play and just forecasted it to an audience without them knowing what D&D was or what like fantasy as a genre was anyway, it would come across as me not being self-aware of my audience and the kind of show that I wanted to put on. So I think like making it a comedy sort of just kind of it felt the most natural because like the comedy sort of came from like the ignorance of like what the audience would be feeling.